On today's show, we are joined by Beverly Akhurst, who I'm truly honoured to call a dear friend, even though we have never met in person. Our conversation centres around something incredibly special to both of us, finding our rhythm in nature and how it reflects the rhythm of our own hearts. Beverly will share her incredible journey of reconnecting with nature, overcoming challenges, and how this has transformed her life. If you would really like to help Sacred You, please hit that subscribe button, give us a like, or check us out at www.sacredyou, that's the letter U, .love for more valuable resources. May you enjoy today's conversation. Welcome to today's conversation on pathways to well-being. And with me, I have a very dear friend, and I'm actually honoured to call Beverly a very dear friend, even though we are on the other side of the world. And I've never met Beverly in person, but Beverly, I do feel that I know a little bit about you, and I'm really excited to talk to you again. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Sophia. I always find joy in sharing time with you. So this is wonderful. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. And we're talking about something that is dear to both of us, especially you and also me, even though I don't practice it as much as I'd like to at the moment, just with all the technology. But, you know, how we can really see ourselves in nature, how we can find the rhythm of our hearts in nature. So I said, I'm very excited. And Beverly, can you tell us like a little bit about yourself, but also how do you find your rhythm in nature?
It's funny when you do a podcast, you think, how do you tell somebody about you within that framework when you have this lifetime of experience? But I'll start with, there's a couple of pictures of me as a young child. One of them is me sitting on the grass, enthralled, the first time I've ever sat on grass as a baby, just enthralled. And you can see it, my face touching it like it was the most incredible thing. And there's another one of me. We lived in Greece for 2 years when I was very young. And I was sitting on the edge of something, and a friend of my mom's was holding, make sure I didn't go in. And I had my foot in water that was flowing by. And I was just, again, the same look of astounded wonder. I got it when I was a kid. When I was a baby, I got it. I understood everything. That's this connection, the wonder of what was around us. And as I moved through life, I never quite lost it. I gained fear of parts of nature. I gained fear. It's like you hear enough stories from a sister's friend about how the seaweed will wrap around and pull you under because it's intent on killing you. And you start becoming afraid of what's under the surface. Or you go out in the dark at night, glowing green eyes in the dark, and you start to worry that the forest is full of little gremlins because you saw the movie Gremlins. But as I got older, I pushed myself to do things, to hike, to go off into nature on my own, to participate in things that used to bring me fear. And I remembered that deep love of nature. And in my 40s, after I landed on a cardiac unit, and I'm a person who goes off hiking in the mountains on my own. I've done long-term bike rides, camping bike rides. So I've taken my bike with all my camp gear and biked across some reclaimed rail grade for a week, or biked to California from Vancouver. For anyone who lives on the West Coast knows that's a long way, and you can actually get blisters on your butt. But I did all that, and then I hit this point where I got wound up in the energy of my father's leaving this world with his pancreatic cancer, of being in jobs that brought me no joy, of living life so completely out of rhythm with who I was that it nearly broke me. And then I stopped, took a good long pause. 7 days of that was in a cardiac unit. And I remembered. I remembered who I was, always, never stopped being. I remembered that there was something there that I was missing. So, all the places that ever brought me the most joy, all the places where I ever felt most empowered were always with nature. And I started paying attention to what that was. I became a yoga teacher. And yoga is not all the poses, yoga is connection, huge, yoking us back to everything. And I started to remember and fall deeply and madly in love with everything I've come from, everything I am a part of again. And I realized that when I stopped and spent time with all the parts of nature, when I watched, I learned more and more about me, the real me, not the I am this, I am that, I am whatever me, but me, the one that's in here. And yeah, the journey of it has been to discover the most minute detail now and understand that what exists outside of us also exists within us, that the rhythms we carry are matched to the rhythms of the earth. And it's now my goal. It's this place of being for me to keep digging, keep looking, keep remembering all of that and share as much as I can with whoever wants to learn it so that they can be embodied again in this way that is not separated from everything and everyone, but reconnected, re-yoked, huge, re-brought together so that everyone can be the incredibly unique individual human beings they were meant to be while still being part of everything around them.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I can really, I feel you. And I'd just like to honor you, first of all, for joining us today and for sharing the journey, because, you've had such a big life, going from working in mental health field to even doing tech and then turning becoming a wellness coach and a yoga teacher. Such a big change. And I'm assuming that it was your experience time. I don't know if experience is a good word, but the time that you spent in the cardiac unit helped you or encouraged you. Encouraged isn't even the word too, but
with courage, yeah, sure.
Encouraged you to come into the where you are now and becoming much more into the rhythm of your life with your yoga teacher and your coaching of other people and everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, all those, everything I've done in my life, I like, it's funny when people say they regret doing something or wish they'd made different choices. All my choices, all the things I've done have offered me wisdom to carry forward. They've offered me ways of being, they might not have been the thing for me. They might not, they might have depleted me, but without them, I wouldn't be who I am here now, able to support the people that I support, because everyone has so much in their background that I'm able to actually understand so much of it. But yeah, there are many metamorphosis moments in my life, but that cardiac unit one was a big one because it was that moment of, I told nobody except the lovely man that I was living with at that time. Nobody knew. I didn't tell my mother. I told no one. I didn't want to. I didn't care. I just wanted the peace. I wanted peace. So I was on a cardiac unit, sleeping 22 hours a day. My pulse was 30. I had a tachycardia, arrhythmia, 40,000 extra beats in my heart a day. And they were completely confused, had no idea what was wrong with me. And I just knew it at that first stage of sleeping. I am completely exhausted. I'm heartbroken. I'm done in. I've pushed myself beyond my abilities, my limits, my boundaries. And it doesn't matter how capable we all are, we all have limits and boundaries. And so I slept hours a day without disruption because they're very quiet on cardiac units. They don't want to disturb you. And I just slept and I slept and it was blissful. And when you're in that kind of state of exhaustion and in sleep, you let go of a lot. You let go of a lot. I wasn't actually freaked out about being there. I was just almost grateful for the space of nothingness. And the seventh day rolled around, woke up, felt very good. I was just like, sat up, wanted breakfast. Little ticker tape rolling out of the machine was just bopping along happily. Nurses came in very confused. The doctor came in and said, everything seems perfect. Don't know what's going on here, but I still think we should burn out a piece of your heart. They wanted to do an ablation and possibly give me a pacemaker at the age of 42. And I thought, this really doesn't feel like something I want to do. And I get it. Look at me. I'm doing fine. I slept. I had peace. I had moments. And that was the exact moment I knew I wasn't going to have that done. I let them think they could plan time, but I just said no. And I went back to my life and I looked at it and went, what do I need to remove? And it was the work I was doing at that time, which was for an airline. I'd started that work thinking I could travel. It was just hard work. And the universe then supported me because I happily then took on everything that was needed. The company I worked for offered an early out program. They'd never, ever laid anybody off in their life, but they were having a slow time. So I said, anybody who wants out early, we've got a deal for you. Keep all your travel benefits and leave. Nobody else read the memo. Nobody else in the entire province I live in read the memo. I was the only one who saw it. And I went up and I said, absolutely. How about in this many months, I'm gone. Started with my plan. I was out. And the next year, when I finally had some time for me to explore everything, I looked at my bank account, saw what I had left, looked at a yoga teacher training, said, okay, when does your next one start? I phoned them up that night and they said, actually, it starts tomorrow and there's a workshop tonight if you want to come. I'm like, how much does it cost? It was the exact amount I had left in the bank. I said, there you go. And I've never looked back because I was out of rhythm. I was completely out of rhythm. And the moment I stepped back into this rhythm of being, of sleep, of food, of listening and trusting myself, of being who I was meant to be, everything flowed again. Everything came into a space of joy. Not that there's not hard work to it, but it's worthwhile hard work at that point. It's worthwhile way of being, and it doesn't bite you in the butt the same way.
I'm just sitting here going, oh my God. And the thought that comes, Beverly, and again, thank you for sharing. If everyone who's watching this or listening just takes one thing from our conversation, is that, if you don't slow down, if we don't slow down, if I don't slow down, the body will make us slow down. And you were very fortunate, Beverly, if I can say, maybe fortunate is, again, not the right word, but I'm going to say, you were very fortunate that you got what your body needed and was able to sleep. Sometimes other things happen that, if I can just share very quickly so people understand what I'm trying to say, is a couple of years ago, I just said subconsciously, give me a break. Give me a break. I need a break. I got a break. I broke my shoulder. So it's a very different thing because I had to recover, have surgery and recover from that. But for you, it's, oh my God, this is such an example that if we don't take care of ourselves, the body will make us. So thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad you shared that as a different perspective so that people can see their story within whatever goes on for them. Because it will show up, like you said, the way you ask for it without you realizing you've asked for it. It will show up if you're not listening to the signals that are given, or everything will try and give you a message. Hey, stop. And if we're not listening, or we're not able to understand how to listen, again, it'll come and say, okay, you need a louder message because you don't understand this language. Okay, here it is. I'll make it very obvious. Broken shoulder. Hey, hi. In a way, I think I had it easier because I just got to lay there and they never operated on my heart. You, on the other hand, had to go in and have surgically repaired.
Yes, yes, but that was again a message. It's a lesson, and like you, I felt incredibly taken care of. And I'd like to go into that little bit with you if we can before I go. I've got so many other questions.
Absolutely.
Is that you've gone from being in a cardiac unit and sleeping because that's what you needed, and then going home and being given, the universe has been giving you the opportunity to leave what was no longer working for you job, and then right there and then supplying you with the next step. How did that happen, if I can? Did you have to let go of control? Did you just have total faith in the universe before that happened? Or how did that actual process happen?
Sorry, before the cardiac unit or before I stepped into what I needed to?
Before the cardiac unit, did you
Oh.
used to have faith in the universe? Did you, follow universe directions from the universe, or were you totally in control of everything?
You're asking that of a Virgo. Yes, this Virgo learned at a very young age because I was joyful. I liked to laugh and run. And I was messaged many times, oh, you've got a nice, laugh quieter and sit still and all these things. So and I could see why everybody at a very young age, I could understand who needed support, who needed help, who was hurting, who was angry, not because they were angry, but because of something else. I could read everything. I could see everything. I could see when an animal was feeling bad. So I was very good at it at a young age, but then fear, bad things within childhood, they take over. And you, myself, whoever, we all have our ways of coping with whatever those childhood things are. And for me, it was just learn to figure out what everyone else needs first, because I already had that skill, that internal skill naturally. But then I started utilizing it to keep everything very safe and secure. So safety and security became a thing. And it took me until I started at a very young age to work with victim services. And you have to learn a lot and be very on the ball in victim services and let go of a lot of control because there's no control there. And then I worked in a mental institution. And again, it's more about reading energy. And I didn't know what to call it at that point, but I started really tuning in and trusting. You have to trust your instincts when your only security is a whistle and the people are there because they weren't quite fully present enough to be put in prison or in the mental prison wards. We got them. You want to stay safe. You need to stay safe by trusting and building your intuition. And then move through everything I did was moving into this environment. I worked for the school board again with children who had a lot of issues going on. And I tried to change to IT, and you're in an environment then where it's okay, this is very practical, but I couldn't do the practical. My intuition took over. They hired me to work with the students while I was going to school because they're like, no, you're good with people. So we're going to hire you for this. So it was always there, but I was never utilizing it in the right way. And what it would do is keep hitting me. Like I would get my head hit. Things were always knocking at me. And whenever I wasn't listening to me, everything was out of flow. Everything was a struggle. Jobs were a struggle, like getting the next job or whatever was a struggle. As soon as I stopped doing that, everything would flow. So I started trusting in it more. And then after the cardiac unit I'd already the 2 years before given up a lot of stuff because I was at a women's group I belonged to, and everything I used was a reference of water. Said, when you're in a boat and you're paddling, do you know when you're on the water and this happens? And everything was a reference. And as I was riding home on my bike, this gentleman was running by me, and it was to be my partner for the next 15 years. And he's somebody I'd known for 27 years, best friend of the big brother of my best friend from high school. I'm like, hey. And he goes, you want to be crew on my boat? My sailboat's getting done. And I said, I've never sailed. I don't know how. He goes, neither have I. So be my crew. And we were together after that for a very long time. He's still a dear friend of mine. And I trusted. And so that started changing life. But then I stopped trusting it. My dad got sick. I came outside of myself, outside of everything I know. And what did I do? I landed on a cardiac unit. And that was my big reminder. The biggest one went, okay, enough of this. You've been working up to this, working up to this, working up to this. This is it. It is time to shift your whole world. Your universe needs to flip into a universe that isn't dictated as reality by the rest of the world, but is the reality that is required by the world that I need to exist within. There's that thing that people expect of you to fit in, and there's that thing expected of us to fit us. And we don't often get pointed inwards to this. But I was able at that point to have enough. There had been enough moments in my life. There had been enough. That was when I went, okay, this is ridiculous. It is time to step into the life I was meant to be living. Time to step into who I am, who I'm meant to be, how I'm meant to be, and to follow that rhythm. It's a rhythm, it's a dance. We're in a bloody beautiful dance of life, and we forget to step onto the dance floor and enjoy it.
Again, thank you. You've got such a wonderful, inspiring story, Beverly, and I feel actually honoured that I get here to hear it from you. And there's so many things, but I just feel that you just take a moment just to absorb everything that you've said. It is incredible. So thank you for sharing. A big lesson in just trusting life, even trusting the things that put us in hospital that may not be good things, but they're there to help us. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, moving on, if I can. So you've done your yoga teacher training and then you've established rhythm of life. Tell us about that. And what does rhythm, I'm assuming it means rhythm, but for you, why did you choose rhythm of life?
When I started teaching, I started as ocean breath yoga. And funnily enough, I found a studio literally right down by the ocean after I'd been called myself ocean breath yoga. So that was perfect. And this transition into rhythm of your life happened in the last couple of years because I observed this world completely out of rhythm. And yes, rhythm is a Sanskrit word that is the root of rhythms, rituals, rites, writing, arithmetic is all encompassed in there. It's the underlying laws of nature that govern everything in the material universe, and it can be broken down into ri and rita and rhythm. It's this flow through of understanding what we are and the purpose of what we are, and then how to utilize that purpose. And rhythm, I think I was always heading this direction, but I needed to be the yoga teacher first because there's a Western version of yoga and then there's the actual version of yoga, which is what I do now. And rhythm, I think it's the most important thing. If there is an underlying science sees it, science calls it very technical things, but rhythm is it. It's underlying everything that you see in the universe that is made of matter. And we're told that all the time. You look at nature has seasons. You look at how the water ebbs and flows and how it gets pulled by the moon. Those are the laws of nature. Everything has this law. So if that exists and we're made out of it, then there is a rhythm within us. There is this writing of what we are and who we are. There is an arithmetic, it adds up to something. We have rhythm, ritual, and we forget it. In fact, I wouldn't even say we forget it. We've been told not to notice it. Everything goes out of its way so we don't acknowledge it, because how can you become what you're meant to be and still have the world function the way it does? It's not going to work. That's the scary part for everybody. It doesn't work that way. We can make it work in a beautiful way, but that's a lot of work. So for me, rhythm is looking at not just this People still use the word woo. I don't think there's anything. I think it's all different ways of seeing and experiencing life, but I want people to see this side that isn't logical. I want people to see that, okay, if a tree flourishes and starts growing spring, its sap starts running in the spring and it starts making stuff out of the sun, and the sun has to get higher and higher in order for all this to happen. It has to reach a certain peak, and sweetness happens in fruit at night when it's cool, when the earth is exhaling. And the earth exhales, if anybody is unsure of that, when you exhale, get close to a mirror, what happens? The mirror steams up. What happens at night when the moon is up or when the sky is dark and the earth exhales? The grass gets dewy and wet. It's doing the same thing. It exhales. It exhales at a different pace than us. It's got a longer breath. The daytime is the inhale, the evening's the exhale, but it's breathing. The ocean ebbs and flows like the breath. That was why ocean breath yoga. We have this rhythm of breathing in and out. Sometimes it has to be larger and fuller. Sometimes it needs to be softer, but we just walk through the day going, my body will take care of it. No, we also need to express our breath. There's a reason we laugh. Our laughter is our breath. That's breath. That's your heart. We have microbiomes that have a rhythm. And if you eat far later than your brain is ready for, and your brain is ready to go to bed, but you're eating at midnight, but your brain said it was midnight, it was bedtime a long time ago. Now your brain starts thinking, are we in a different time zone? Should I readjust myself for this different time zone? Because your belly's over in this time zone. I'm over here. Let's get together. And then everything's messed up, your sleep cycles, everything else. We have a rhythm to the food we eat. What's growing around you right now? Why are we getting all the food that doesn't grow near us when what's growing in this point in time? I'm blessed. I live in Vancouver, so there's still a winter growing season. It's cool and it's wet, but kale and cruciferous vegetables grow, and you get the pumpkins and the gourds and all this. There's stuff that grows. So why not eat that stuff that is growing? There's a rhythm where I live, and there's a rhythm to what I should be eating with it in the place I live. There's everything. Everything has a rhythm, even how you bathe and the temperatures. What about when you go to sleep, when you wake up? What do you do when you wake up? There should be a rhythm and a ritual. Remember, it's the same word, ritual. Why not create a ritual? Not just go brush your teeth, but we'll add to the ritual. You know what I do? I wake up, and I remember hearing this thing, I forget if it was Louis Schwartzberg was talking about it, and he had been talking to a scientist, that the moment you wake up in the morning, all the cells that your eyes have used to see the day before, when you are asleep, they die and new ones get ready to go. So when you open your eyes in the morning and light hits your eyes, those old cells that are dead get burned off. They get burned away, and then the new cells are there. So they have never seen the world you're seeing. So why not observe awe and wonder? And I've added that to my ritual. Start the day with awe and wonder that, oh my God, never seen this. Isn't everything amazing and beautiful? And it changes what's going on inside of me. How I move has changed. And when I'm not in motion, I can feel it. I can feel it right down into my energy being, the difference it makes. I've gotten so good at observing and listening and understanding this language of me that I can feel when the energy is off. I can feel when one leg actually feels a bit longer than the other, which tells me that muscles on one side got tight. I can feel it. And it's very minute, but it's this amazing thing to get into that place where it's like, oh my God, I'm actually in this living conversation with every part of me. And it's probably one of the most beautiful conversations I've ever had in my life, ever. This conversation with this. And I find so much joy now existing in this that I can't ever go back. And I hope that people want to have a piece of that and never go back to a place where it becomes unimportant, because how can it not be important? trillions of beings that are not human have chosen to surround you, the energy that is you, for the whole of your life. How can I not think I'm as important as they believe I am?
Incredible. Thank you. All I can say is thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing your message. And I love there are so many messages in it. How the ocean breathes each day and each night. And just the rhythm of life, getting back and staying in touch with our rituals, with our natural rhythms. We live in such a world now that I believe, and I have to say from my personal experience, that we allow technology and everything else to control our life. And we think that our devices are our lives and everything else. But just talking to you, Beverly, has shown me how, well, first of all, how easy it is to get back into that rhythm when we make it a priority, but the benefits of putting ourselves first, basically, and just really trusting and going with the rhythm that life brings us, nature brings us, and everything else brings us.
Yeah. And I thank you for offering that, because it made me think of something I really want to make sure to say. What you just said, which is it is very easy. And that's the thing. It is very easy, but it can seem incredibly hard when you've been separated from that. So I want to remind people, it's like anything in life. You learn to walk by taking the first step, second step, and you'd fall down. You'd fall down. That's fine. We didn't care as babies because we were intent on getting up and walking like everybody else. And this can seem overwhelming, especially if you're older. That word, I can't stand that word. What is that? But as we move through life, I've established now in this pattern, yeah, but one step. All you need is one step. And then when you learn how that step works, it's easier to take the next step, and it's easier. And then it's, oh, well, I'm just walking along. Let me gather the steps in now. But it's a practice like everything. I used to wonder what yoga practice meant when people would say, when you're doing a practice, and it didn't really sink in, but it's the practice of showing up. It's the practice of being, it's the practice of exploring. And that's all it is. It's not the master yogis are the ones that should be asked to sit down on the ground and just breathe while everyone else is moving around them. If you tell me you're a master, then fine, you sit on the floor and watch everyone else practice, because you should have got past that point where you can now be in your body. But there aren't many that can do that. I would say, no, I still need to get up and learn that practice. I'm not the master. I'm a master compared to others, but I'm still mastering life. And I think if everyone understands that it's just where you're at, there's no wrong moment to start. And it's only one step you've got to do. And you don't have to know a lot about it. Not at all. You just have to decide that everything you knew when you were a child is still there, that you're still available to everything. And yeah, because people can get frightened off when they hear a big experience. It's like, my big experience took me a long time to get to. So what? And it's never going to end. It's never going to be perfected. So what?
It's a journey, it's the rhythm of life. Like you said, it's just one step. And we'll go into what happens for anyone who is willing, ready to take that one step. But before we do, I'd love to ask you a little bit about the other things that you offer, because I know you do craniosacral therapy, you help people with that. Also, is that part of, do you use that to help people release trauma? Or would you like to talk about that, your techniques in releasing trauma?
Yeah, I use a number of things. I'm that person, once I got over feeling like I had to do everything right the way everybody else expected, it was big release. So after becoming a teacher, I trained with a lot of people I very much respected, but I've been very choosy about the things I add on to, because I think we can gain a lot of knowledge without having to get every certificate known to man, because everything's just become certified. But there are some things that I find incredibly useful and important. So for me, yoga practice can be movement, can be breath, can be philosophical conversation to get some knowledge so that people can take control of their lives. It can be forest bathing. I take people out into everything is in nature. Everything is, to me, COVID was the best thing that occurred because it got people, they had no choice but to come out of the studio with me. Guess what? Can't go inside. So we're doing what I've always wanted to do, which is just be out with the trees all the time. And they found a deep love of it. The trees talk to them. And we're talking bankers and lawyers, and the trees talk to them. This is great. But I then started adding things like craniosacral. Craniosacral can be a trauma release, because anything that allows you a connection to your energy field, which is the second kosha. If you picture Matryoshka doll, the external is the physical form, then there's the energetic bodies, the next doll. Our traumas are held in that energy field, in our cellular body, and our cellular body is where the energy comes and goes. So in craniosacral, trauma can be released. But for me, it's more about allowing people to access their energy field, to get unstuck in those places where they've become so contained, where there's no flow, no rhythm, no tidal movement of the fluids of the body, of the energy of the body. And it's an amazingly beautiful thing to watch what happens for people when your hands are so light. If you've had craniosacral before,
Yes.
yeah, so it's incredibly light, and people say, "What were you doing?" It's like it can feel like your body's doing this, but if you look, the body might be doing this. But that's when you start to feel it. It's, oh, this is a massive energy field. This is huge. I like that sense of being able to gift that, because it's a big thing to put your hands on somebody, to be immersed in their energy. It's very personal, and to also not wear that energy. So it's a gift in many ways. It's a give and take. It's a very loving thing to share with somebody. So for me, that's an access point to get them out of some emotional blocks, to get them out of physical things that have been contained in them for a very long time. The trauma, I experience more of supporting people with tremoring. Again, I think you have said you've experienced tremoring. To me, that's the most brilliant. It's like you tire out the muscles and then let them go, and they will take you on a journey. They don't need to be told. They've been waiting for that moment. And it's joyful in a weird way to watch sometimes. People are a little freaked out at first because they're like, is that me doing that? No, you couldn't do that if you wanted to. So just let your body go. But the beauty of it is it happens because people are in a state where conversation. So when you're safe, locomotion and language happen. You can locomote, you can move, and you can have language. So that's when you know you're safe. When you're in a trauma response, when something's attacking you, there is no real language, and your only job is to run or freeze. So the tremoring gets you out of that freeze response, because your body's doing what it did. It's moving down to that thing that it did when you were under attack. Let's call it that trauma. Felt like an attack. And so your body would like to go back to freeze, but because you're having a conversation with me or somebody else, because you're able to get out of it if you want to, stop it if you want to, the mind has to go, oh, okay, apparently nothing's wrong because we're laughing about stuff, we're chatting about stuff. So I guess it's okay to hang out here. And that way the body's able to keep letting these things go, lifetimes of stuff that's stuck. And you come out the other side. And I do love that Stephen Porges believes, and I think he's probably quite right, that this is the evolution of the human. If we can move past those points, we come out to a place that's even far more evolved than where we started from before the traumas. So again, adds in, and I used to watch people in yoga class and the asana practice who would get into muscles that hadn't moved in a long time, and they'd be shaking, and just let it go. Let the body release. It's trying to let go. It's reacting, and they'd be freaked out going, what's going on? What's wrong? It's okay. And then along comes tremoring, and I go, okay, of course, animals do it. Any child who's been traumatized will do that. You see them, and they'll be done. It's adults, us, we're told to buck up and hold in and just deal with it and stiff upper lip, all these things. So I really love having that to add in to practice. Tire out the body, do that. Move fast. I get people sprinting in classes if they're up to it. I get them doing ridiculous things that they never thought they'd do. 70-year-old women who are dancing to no music in the trees, or who are playing like children again. They're creating animal shapes. They're just exploring what their bodies will do. These are all the different practices I incorporate, because there should never be just one thing, because nobody is just one thing. So why should the practice be just one thing? I want them to use their voices. I want them to make sound for the fun of making sound. I want them to see what their hand will do. I have a student, she's absolutely lovely, and she won't mind me sharing this because she says to share things. And when she was younger, she always imagined herself as a mannequin so she wouldn't have to deal with her body. And now that she explores it, I remember one day we were working together and I said, we're not doing anything big today. I want you to feel the largeness of life. I want you to feel something different. And we just sat until she was finally able to acknowledge her hands and relax them so much that she felt them, that she could feel the air, the weight of the air, that she could feel like her hands were double their size, and yet these soft, beautiful things that could hold the whole of life in them. And the moment she felt that, by just sitting and being, that moment, she was in tears. It changed her. Those are the moments that matter. The practice doesn't matter. It's a practice for the person. So whatever works for somebody, whatever is the thing that person needs, is what I want to share with them. But it takes somebody being willing enough to just explore, somebody who is actually committed to themselves. Committing to me doesn't matter. Committing to themselves does. You can pay me money, you can commit to coming and sitting here, but if you're not committing to yourself to do the thing for yourself, there's no point. I'm just a showpiece for you on this side. I can give you something, you can say you tried and then walk away. That gift, that loving gift of turning into yourself and going, okay, I'm doing this because I truly believe I deserve it, then to me, that's worth it. I will do whatever it takes.
Thank you. Again, I think you've just answered my next question too.
I was reading your mind.
And I'm just taking this all in. Like, it's amazing. And we definitely have to talk more, Beverly. But before we finish up, if there's anyone out there who is watching or listening and they would really like to begin their journey, if they're really ready to take that one step that you mentioned, it's just one step at a time, what advice would you give them? And also, to bring it back to you, how can they work with you? What other things do you offer as well?
For the people who can't step into my space or come hang out in the park with me, I happily do everything online. That is for all the, as you and I know, there's a lot of challenges to technology. But for all of that, the gift that we have of being able to talk to each other anywhere in the world is brilliant. Energy doesn't require you being in the same room. Understanding doesn't. I can see what goes on for people, so I happily will work with anyone, anywhere. And again, it can be so many different things. I can even lead somebody through tremoring, but if there's a lot in their background, I won't do unless they have somebody there with them, because they need to have somebody there if something does come up. But everything I do can be done. I can even show people how to do small craniosacral holds for themselves, but it's not about all the physical. Part of it is, I will always start with the posture, because if you can't experience your body, if you can't breathe, the other stuff is going to be a lot more difficult. So starting with posture and then building off of that in whatever direction this lovely flower wants to grow is very possible. Sorry, the first part of your question disappeared in there. What's one thing? Okay, something I would give people if they wanted the first step. Again, it's a very individual thing, but I would say learn to breathe. And you don't have to go learn every yogic breath out there. Sit with yourself and learn to pay attention to your breath. Start noticing what your breath does when you're happy. Start noticing what your breath does when you're not happy. Start noticing what your breath does when you're working, when you're driving. All these things, start making a very conscious note, because the fun thing is you'll learn more about yourself and how you react to things and what might possibly be some of the issues. But your breath also automatically changes the moment you start paying attention to it. So the moment you are aware of your breath changes, you are now in control of your breath. And already you are now starting to have a conversation with your nervous system. So how many people out there are stressed? Oh, a lot. So already in that simple act of paying attention to your breath, you have started dealing with your stress. You have started dealing with your immune system and your health. You have started calming your mind. You have started changing the health of your entire system by simply paying attention to your breath and noticing it so that you can become aware of it. Like, it's brilliant. It's the simplest thing. Then you start flowing through, work on the posture, or check out and see what your feet actually do when you're not looking when you're walking. And for the people who struggle with so many things internally, start looking at the food. And I'm not talking, you don't have to do some big, God, please don't do a diet. Please. I've never done a diet in my life. Don't ever do a diet. Just start paying attention to whether or not when you eat, you're actually hungry, and to whether or not you really feel good with the food that you choose. And if you're willing to forsake time preparing food in order to be with a TV or just get more work done, rather than be in the energetic connection to the thing, this gift of food that has been grown for you that you can recreate this with. I would say those are the simplest, like the truly simplest practices to start with.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And again, for anyone who is watching this or listening, do click on these links below and connect with Beverly, because even if it's just a conversation, right, the wisdom and that you have, Beverly, and the passion that you have for life, you can really, you are a living example of everything that you just spoken about for the last hour. Thank you ever so much. And before we wrap up, is there any other question that I could have asked you? How would have you answered?
Any other question? Does life become easier when you do this?
Does it? Does life become easier? How? That's actually what I was going to ask you, but I didn't. I decided that I didn't want to, because you are like a living example of it. But in today's world, with the craziness of everything that goes on, and I know you're an entrepreneur, and everything that happens to everyone else is happening to you in your life and stuff. How has your life changed? Is it easier for you now than what it was before?
Here's the fun answer. Life isn't easier. Life is still the same life, but how I deal with life is far different. How I move through it is different. I still have crappy days. I still have moments that want to push me down, it feels, and yet I know that the universe isn't doing that. But the difference is I recognize that it's nothing out to get me. I recognize the moments far quicker when that happens. I recognize that it's just a momentary shift in my energy field. And because I can recognize that, it doesn't feel harder. It does feel easier. It's the same things going on, but it's my perspective. I have stepped to a different point in the viewing field, and my perspective is far different. I can still complain about something and then I can laugh at myself later for complaining about it because it really is nothing. So life is just as hard technically, but internally, I look at it more like a play now. And I can get wound up in a good play, but then I go, I'm still sitting in the seat watching the play. So I'm good. I'm good.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Like I said, it has been a real honour chatting to you about everything about the rhythm of life and how you have been able to find your rhythm, how that has helped you and how you are now helping others all over the world. So, like I said, I'm honoured to be able to talk to you.
And Sophia, I want everyone out there who's listening to hear this. That honor is reflected back to you because I know the amount of work that goes into what it is that you are doing to have us be here talking now and to have the whole of Sacred You coming together and to want and desire the creation of this community. It doesn't just show up. It takes this effort, this amazing, incredible, energetic effort on another side that has nothing to do with sitting and being like this, but you need those things to get you there. So I really deeply honor and appreciate what it is you are offering out and how you show up with this smile and this energy that is always gracious, even when things are kerfuffled. So I thank you as well.
Thank you. Like I said, it has been wonderful to talk to you today. And for everyone who is watching or listening, do hit those subscribe buttons, the like buttons, the follow buttons, whatever platform you're listening on, to come and join us and listen to some more amazing conversations like Beverly's. And I really do hope, Beverly, that we have you back again very soon.
Before you cut off, let's just encourage people into Sacred You. If you want to work with me and you haven't joined Sacred You, join Sacred You and you will get 20% off any program I do with you.
Absolutely.
Because I want you to join us in this beautiful dance.
And isn't that wonderful to join Beverly and everyone else in Sacred You? It's a wonderful offer, Beverly. Thank you. In the dance of life, because that's what it is. Come and enjoy the dance of life and let go of the seriousness that sometimes we can get caught up with.